Hey TVs, it's Psychic Bob. Well, it is so good to be with you. Well, I tell you, I am out walking today. It's Wiccan Wednesday, and it is like a spring day. I cannot believe it's February here, but it's literally like summer. I feel like I'm in Southern California, even though I'm right outside Washington, D.C. Anyways, I'm here today. I'm at the mystical moon temple. You guys have seen this before, or maybe some of you haven't. But this is a sacred space where I come to meditate and connect to the Lord and the Lady. Up above us here, we've got our beautiful sun up in the sky, glowing brightly. It's a beautiful day. You guys are the best. Well, I thought we'd walk along and I'd share some thoughts with you guys. A number of you have been writing to me and saying, Psychic Bob, what led you to Wicca? Well, that's a really good question. I've talked about some of that before on my channel, but it's such a deep subject. I think it's worth revisiting and maybe elaborating on even more. You know, today reminds me of a day quite a few years ago. It was a day just like today, a warm spring type of day. And I had been doing readings for some clients. I had a little shop at a local shopping mall. And people kept saying to me, "You are a really cool witch. That's so neat that you're a good witch." I never understood that. I said, "What do you mean I'm a witch?" Well, I got curious about that, and I decided to go and visit a local bookstore. And I asked the sales guy, I said, "Do you guys carry anything on witches?" And the girl says, "Oh, we have books on Wicca." I said, "Wicca, what's that?" I really had never heard of Wicca. So she took me back to the book section, and they had the Wiccan books. And I picked up, the first book I picked up was Scott Cunningham's book, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner. Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner. And I just started reading, and I instantly was intrigued. So I bought that book and I took it home. That night I remember sitting up reading it. And in that book it talks about, you know, you should connect back to nature. And it was a warm day like today, and I went out walking that night under the moon. And you know how like a lot of people in churches say, "Oh, I was born again." I believe in that experience, but I believe you can be born again in many ways. And as I walked under the moon that night and I saw the stars, I started to realize that what the witches were teaching had real value and would really help my life. There's a bumper sticker that I have, and it says, "Born Again Pagan." I really like that because it has a few meanings. One, born again, meaning reincarnation. It means we're back and we're experiencing this world again. It also means born again in the sense of a spiritual awakening, a spiritual renewal. I think that's very true as well. You know, when you awaken to the craft, I think one of the first experiences, at least that I had, maybe others have had, is one of profound awareness and gratitude. Suddenly it's like you wake up and you realize, how have I been walking around in this life and not realizing the power from Mother Earth? How have I not realized the power from Father Sky and the Sun Lord? I think for many of us, our spirituality is something we're really very disconnected from. Some people say, "Well, I go to church every Sunday and I don't know what you're talking about." Well, some of you may have an easier go at it. But at least in my case, it seemed to me that God, at least as I related to him at that time, with some faraway, distant being who sat in judgment. I didn't know. The idea of a God who judges people and sends them to hell, I was not in favor with that. It seemed to me that life was tough enough without then having to add fear on top of it. I always thought spiritual life was meant to bring peace to one, to bring joy to one. And I think that's what Wicca did for me. It helped me to realize that life is joyful and that God is close to us, that God is male and God is female, the Lord and the lady, and that we're not disconnected or hated. Scott Cunningham says in his book, Wicca Guide for the Solitary Practitioner, he said, if you see God as somebody who is a bringer of death, he said, consider that God could be the giver of life. He said, if you fear that God is going to cast you down and reject you, consider that God could be a loving father to embrace you. I think so many of us in the West have been brought up in a situation where God has been a force of terror. Many of us fear, oh my goodness, I might slip out of line, and that's the end of my soul. Could a God who loves us be so capricious and mercurial? See, Wicca says, dare to love God, dare to engage in this natural world. See, I think part of the problem is that many religions, such as Christianity, say that this world is fallen, it's full of sin and evil, and we should reject it. If you're born into that reality, and you're truly a miserable fallen creature who God hates, what hope is there? Why try? Why bother? See, Wicca said to me, you are loved. You're part of the universe. The Earth Mother is nurturing you. The stars illumine you. You have a place in this cosmos. You're one with it. And you are loved. That made a lot more sense to me. Well, I had to stop by the CVS and pick up some snacks. You know, it's always like taking a risk when you go in there. Today there wasn't a soul in the store. I wish I'd filmed it. I would have actually got a film without some drama. But kind of like, you know, the minute you pull your camera out comes the drama. So anyways. So some of you have asked me in your letters, you've said, Psychic Bob, I want to follow Wicca, but my family is against it. Well, that's a tough position to be in. But you have to follow your heart. I believe that people that follow Wicca are truly called to it. And if you feel called to it, nothing on earth will stop you from following it. Some of you are still underage and you live at home. You may have to be a little more reclusive about your practices. But remember, the Lord and the Lady live in your heart. You don't have to have all the outer trappings of the altars and robes and items. It's nice to have it, but until you're older, make do with honoring them in your heart. The greatest worship is in the heart. You see, some people say to me, well, Psychic Bob, my pastor told me that by following Wicca, I'm going to hell. Well, if you believe in a God that does that, that could be a reality. But it's been my experience as a spiritual teacher that hell is a place that is for those who need to awaken. For those who have hatred in their hearts and cannot embrace love, hell is the reality they experience. My spirit guides have said that you attain the reality of spirit to which you are most in harmony with. So this is why if we focus on our spiritual lives and we focus on having peace, we attain peace. I can tell you that following the craft has brought peace into my life. I don't have fear. I have love in my heart. Now, some people will still say, you're going to hell. Well, I just don't believe in a God that has hatred like that. What purpose would it serve to torture me in hell when I'm trying to love God and love my fellow man? You see, don't listen to other people's propaganda. Sometimes people will say, oh, you're rejecting God. But the fact is, what many people reject are people's false interpretations of God. They're not necessarily rejecting God. You know, like a day like today, when I'm out, I look at this beautiful sky. I look at the rich green earth. I see the mystery of life all around me, and my spirit is renewed. You know, I had a Wiccan teacher once say to me, you know, when you come to the craft, you don't have to reject your former spiritual knowledge. You don't cast it away. You embrace growth and change. So for those of you who say that you love Jesus, but yet you love Wicca, it doesn't have to be a conflict. The craft does not reject anybody. So you can still have Jesus as your Lord if you want, and embrace Wicca. Now, I know a lot of Wiccans are against that concept as well. But remember, if you think in terms of embracing higher truth, higher knowledge, there doesn't have to be a conflict. Just my view. So as I said, yes, the craft for me was an experience of awakening to a new reality. I think that spirituality at its best frees the soul. I think where people get trapped is they get hooked into religion and forget spirituality. See, religion's all about the rules. I come from a Catholic background, and I don't say this to knock on Catholics, but I've met a lot of Catholics who their spirituality goes no further than, oh, it's Sunday, I have to go to Mass. And if you ask them, why do you go to Mass? They say, well, because I have to. It's church law. Canon law requires that I attend. I never hear them say, I go because I love to commune with God. Now, I know there are people in the Catholic Church who do go for that reason. I've met many of them. But a lot of people get caught in the rules. And so they figure, well, if I can follow the rules, I'm good to go. But really, they're entrapped by the rules. This is one of the things also that led me to the craft, is I wanted to connect to God without somebody telling me, oh, you did this wrong, or you did that wrong, and you're a sinful person. If we're really honest with ourselves, we all know that we mess up sometimes. We're not always the best or the kindest. But to have somebody beat that in on you and doubly compound it, I don't think that helps any of us. So you see, to embrace the craft is to embrace a new way of living. It's a little scary when you make a major life change. You know, when you say, I'm going to go a different path. And if you're at that point where you're having a little fear and anxiety, just know that's normal. But stick to your studies anyways. The fear will pass. And you'll start to realize the true joy that this path offers. I think also what drew me to the craft was that I feel, and it's my personal belief, no assault on anybody here, but I feel that much of Christianity, at least as it's practiced today, actually disempowers people. I hear so many Christians say, well, what can I do? I guess it's just the will of God. But you see, Wicca says you have a part in your destiny, and you don't have to be a victim. And it kind of teaches God helps those who help themselves. That's very empowering. In the craft, I found self-empowerment. And I came to realize that I could make a choice in my life. I could make choices and change my destiny. I was not frozen in just a situation because just God willed it. It's not how it works. We are co-creators with the Lord and the Lady. We are part of this mystery of life, and we have a great role in it. So I encourage those of you who are interested in maybe exploring a new spiritual path, you might want to learn about Wicca. I would recommend that you start with Scott Cunningham's book, Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner. I also have a book out that you might enjoy called Psychic Bob's Book of Wiccan Wisdom. That might help you as well. Start to read. Start to consider new ideas. Let your mind be open to new realities. Walk the earth. Talk to the trees. Talk to Father Sky. Talk to Mother Earth. Talk to Mother Moon or Mother Sea. So if you want to know what brought me to Wicca, kind of all of that. There's a lot more. We'll probably have to do a bunch of videos on this subject. But I'm so glad you came along today for this walk and this talk. You guys are the best. Listen, keep it here at Spirit Channel. We got more coming. Hope you'll like this video, favorite it, share it with your friends. And if you can, hit subscribe. Be part of our channel. Blessed be.